Hi folks, my name is Justin Herman, and this is Soft Skills for a Technical World, or 30 minutes of what we're all doing wrong. Thank you for all coming, and like I said, my name is Justin. I'm a Senior Systems Administrator in the healthcare industry, and I have a major love of learning. And one of those things is personality traits, and I like learning about different learning patterns that people take to find their source of knowledge. What this is really going to cover is some of the stereotypes that we have in our industry, and maybe how we can deconstruct those in 25 minutes to maybe get to a root and core of how we can solve some of the problems that we have, not so much internally, but more externally from our group, how we can become more inclusive and less exclusive for the rest of the world and how they perceive us, and kind of getting to what we want to have out of it. So a lot of the stereotypes that you might see is like this guy, an SNL skit, Larry the IT guy. When you say I work in IT, they ask you, can you fix my computer? And can you do this? And can you solve these problems? What can I get directly from you? And what they're really trying to achieve is they're trying to open and source some information from you. But so often in many of our fields we get shut down cold. We don't want to answer questions. We don't want to help because we get drawn into this cycle of me, what I want, what they specifically want, the person who's asking questions, instead of creating a give and take, a positive type of communication and feel that happens from there. So some of the stereotypes that we also as an industry carry, we are avoid people, we're antisocial, we don't want to discuss things that are outside of our group, we don't really like breaking out of our shells. That's one of the reasons why you see HackerCons going off so well, is that people are able to feel like they can share and be comfortable, and they can be like people and people that understand them. But out in the real world, in the industry, you don't have a conference for people who work at Mickey D's. You don't have a conference for people who are do regular other type of tasks of life. They may have specific industry tasks, like if you are an accountant, you might go to an accountant convention. But getting beyond those points, we need to find a way to reduce those barriers down, that we can feel comfortable with our personalities and we can be able to communicate with others that are in the group. Some of the other stereotypes that we have are that we might be grumpy and unmotivated, although I don't believe these are true, but these are some of the stereotypes. That we're loners, that we're social outcasts, or that we're very nerdy, that we're incapable. And we have been seeing a really big culture shift that's been occurring, of course, with the nerdy aspect, that's becoming more of a prevalent and more acceptable in our industry and in the world. Being nerd is cool, but it still can be considered a negative and a detriment, and it's something that you don't need to be different. You just need to be able to communicate that personalities are a little bit different. Superiority, impossible to reason with, and the last one, which is kind of shown by the picture that just still cap from SNL, is the ungroomed or unkempt. The fact that, if you look at him, his beard is poorly on there, that his shirt doesn't fit, that his hair is messy. These are all aspects that, you have pride in yourself, and you have pride in how you present yourself and to the rest of the world. And the rest of the world, it seems it as being that you just don't care enough. Quote that I actually found when I was doing some of this information was kind of interesting, and that is people in information technology tend to lack certain skills, and then is empathy and social abilities. And I thought that was really strong because personally I don't think that I have too many issues with that, but I do know that at times I can not want to join in groups and conversation. And I wanted to learn more about that, and I thought about other types of people that I find my friends that are in our industry. And it goes on to say that folks in the information tech divisions are famous in our industry for not getting along with people in other parts of their companies. And that was from an unnamed Hitachi data source systems executive. And it really came to me as an idea that why is it that we don't have empathy, or it's perceived that we don't have empathy, or we don't have social skills? And to break that down is one of the core things that I want to try to do today. So when I was thinking about it, I remember many of the types of identifications or identities that get performed when you're in high school or middle school as to what career path you might be good in, and most times people are pretty bored with it and they find it pretty intellectually non-stimulating, so you don't pay too much attention to it. But I went back and I looked it over in reference to one of my friends. He had brought the idea back to me, and that was actually the Myers-Briggs type indicator. And if you've never had a chance to do one of these tests, it's about 28 questions. And saying it's a test is actually not correct. It's more of an identity indicator, they call it. And if you go to this particular site and you type it in for about 28 questions, they can help correspond to the type of personality that you might be. And it helps give insight to the type of actions and workplace that you might want to interact with. And in my course, this is one of the steps that I thought would be helpful in trying to understand where I kind of fit in. And so I took it, and it said one of my career choices was in computers and science, and also in entrepreneurship. And I looked more, and it said, the ENTPs certainly have the following traits: generate ideas and theories, bright and capable and flexible and diverse, and all these positive things, able to grasp difficult concepts and theories, and enjoying solving difficult problems. And I'm sure a lot of you guys feel the same way. Hey, I feel these same type of things here. I'm a hacker. Let's do this. And then you look at the next step, and these are some of the negatives that I saw from it. And this is that we resist being controlled by people. And I'm sure all of us can agree that we don't like being controlled, and nobody likes being oppressed, but some people do like to have clear directions to be set down and saying a task to be achieved and delivered, and then response that they're going to be positively said. Dislike confining schedules and environments. And my wife is here, and she can tell you that's one of my things. I love playing by the seat of my pants. I like to be just ready. Let's go and do something. I don't want to be confined. I don't want to have set schedules. I just want to let's have some fun and figure something out. And then dislike tasks that they feel like are the waste of time. And I know that I would figure that nobody enjoys doing things that they find a waste of time, but we find more issues with that. And that was an ENTP personality. And like I said, I encourage everybody to, if I had more time, I'd try to do some more studies on this and get schedules and survey more of our members of our groups and figure out what is the propensity of these types of personality traits. But I encourage you to, like I said, check this out, and I can give you the link. But a quick one that I found was celebritytypes.com/test. Yeah, .php. So the real problems that I thought we had was we had a lack of communication skills and a lack of connections to others outside of our circles. We may be very tight with the people that are in our circles that we may feel safe with, but branching out beyond that, we might have a little bit of issues. And how we can try to solve those, which I thought, coming back to the quote and some of the personality traits, is some of our communication skills. We need to really amp those up. We have lots of technical. We're able to pick up on a lot of, whether that be physical or virtual, talking about intellectual concepts that have never been really discussed, and many people are finding way over their head. But we're able to pick those up really easily. But when we comes to just interacting with people outside of our groups and outside of our comfort areas, both visually and auditorially and in many methods of communication, we're just kind of lacking. So I wanted to kind of step through some of the key ways of communications, and maybe we can figure out what might work really well. So verbal communication is all aspects of how you might express your positions, your thoughts, and your voice. And as I'm going through this, you're probably going to be like, yeah, duh, that makes a lot of sense. But if you think about every action that you make and how those are positively and negatively affected, you will start seeing that there's things that we can all do to improve this. Even as I write these all down, I recognize that there's some things that I'm more weak on. So in verbal communication, these are kind of the things that you express out using your voice. And you've got sounds, you've got language, tones of voice, and so in anything that you kind of express to other people in a verbal, expressive manner that you're intending to send out. So if I am not happy because I'm, I had a long day or something, I might be speaking lower in tone of voice, or my inflection might be much higher because I'm excited and because I just popped that box and I'm doing great and CTF's awesome. And of course, the type of language they use, whether abbreviations or slang, it all comes into a whole big picture. Another form of communication, which is the oral communication, is the art of not just hearing, but listening. And in this context, for our purposes, it's to suggest a distinction here. The difference is, I'd say there are two main transactions comparable for reading, such as like a Shakespearean drama, and seeing it performed by a talented spokesperson. Both of them are going to be communicating verbally, but to actually autorally hear it is different. And so you've got hearing and listening. Hearing is observing the words that are being said, like data collection that may give us facts about a situation, but listening may give us additional information that is equally important, not only in the words that someone is saying to us, but their emotions and attitude and context, their analysis of the core meaning of what they're giving. And so if you're sitting there and you're hearing a prose that might be given in a poetry slam, it's going to be given maybe in different repetition and stories. You'll be picking up more information versus just hearing the words that are just written out and taking them at face value. Nonverbal communications are like facial expressions, body language, posture. All of these come into play. When I look at a person and I see them out externally, and you have to identify these things, when my face is slumped down and I'm not pleased, it's going to come out in my voice. Versus at the same time, I might be sad or I might be upset. Body language, if I'm slumped, if I'm not happy. My posture, if I'm leaning over to one side because I'm just kind of bored with this whole talk and it's going on forever. And I'm waiting for that next one to come up. These gestures are usually unconscious, and learning to identify them in other people helps you identify them in yourself. And you can be more reactive and keep a positive image up, which helps express that you're not only interested in what somebody's saying, that you want to communicate with them, that you're vested in the dialogue that's occurring that may normally be forgotten. Another method that is really important is, of course, written communication. And, most people say, well, how can you get really much information from written communication? You're kind of black and white, isn't it? Isn't that how it's always been said? But you've got letters, memos, emails, text messages, chat and messaging. All of these are different methods, and they all have a different type of voice that gets represented. A physical letter that you might write out is going to have a certain pretext and post. You're going to have a body and elements that work from there. A memo is going to be much differently, written in a shorter set, and chat messages and such. There's so many technologies that are going around this, and we have to be aware of the different types of methods that we're using. So a text is much different communication method that you might use than a letter or a memo to your boss. And just being aware of those is what's really important, is going to be able to help you jump beyond there. In written communication, there's also the diction that you're going to perceive, the grammar, the spelling. These are all things that we learned in grade school, and the method that we write in helps dictate not only our education, but the care that we provide to the recipient. I may use contractions in a certain tone, or I may decide that I'm going to use different verbiage. It all comes into play in creating a whole picture. This is one of the things that I have a lot of issues with is, one, I'm not that great at spelling, but I have more issues with part of the grammar. I look at a sentence and I want to dissect it over and over because I believe that if I change it, it's going to create a more lasting impression, that I'm going to have a better connection to my recipient. Visual communications, you've got signs and symbols, pictures. All of these are abilities to create or interpret signs that may be helping the person understand a process or flowchart and working through a client to appropriate permissions, like an office group. So you may be pulling up a whiteboard and working those through. Using a giant dong as a picture symbol is probably not appropriate in many appropriate areas, but it might be great here. It all depends if you're with Dave Kennedy or not. So really, what can we do? The core things that I've looked at is knowing your flaws, remembering your strengths. Remember to look at your intended audience and think about how they would perceive yourself if they were in the reverse spot or that you were in their shoes. Be aware of your surroundings. Obviously, a lot of us go the technical route and are prepared for many areas, but what does that invoke in other people? Are they frightened because you're carrying? Are they scared because you have a knife and that's uncommon to them? Is it necessary to make those things known and present when you're in different types of company? It might not be, and that might be the key take that I want to provide, is that how can we work with others to find common ground and help them understand that we're just like other people, and that we're no different as being hackers versus being an accountant versus being a store clerk, that we're all just human and that we're all just trying to get to this world. One of the books that I kind of pulled some of these findings through was the Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and it sounds really ridiculous. But if you guys have not read this book or even heard it, it's on Amazon for $3, a Kindle version. Pick it up. It's awesome. It was written back in 1938, and it's still true today with all of our new forms of technology as it was ever back then. One of the very first self-help books. But it's a really strong concept to understand what other people's needs are and try to deliver those when you're interacting with other people, because you're going to fit in a lot better. And it's not that you have to change, you just have to be aware of what others are needing and try to deliver that. Nobody wants you to be different. They just want to stir the melting pot a little bit more. And with that in mind, I know I'm a little bit short in time, but if you've got any questions, I'd love to be able to answer any of them and help you out. Any questions? All right. Thank you so much.